I'm the founder of GoDutch. GoDutch is a B2B neo-banking app, and we do a lot of things as well. We're fast growing, but more about that soon. But just to start, if this works, there we go. I wanted to do a little bit of an interaction, so I wanted to see your hands to talk a little bit about customer experience at first. So how many of you think the bank will still own the customer relationship in 10 years? So how many people will work directly with the bank versus other apps? You can use your hands if you think the bank will still own it. Okay, that's interesting. That is, we will get to that point. We'll get to the point. So I guess now the second question is, if you look at your SME customers, how often do you think they're in their banking app versus in the other apps that they use, for example, for expense management or payroll or other things? So more the bank or more the payrolling, accounting, Playo, expense management? What are people using more? Yeah, so the reality is already that, for example, indeed, the expense management tools are already more used than the banking tools. And the problem is that there's so many tools that SMEs are drowning in all these different things. So a business has between 3 and 7 different tools that need to work. You have banking, payment acceptance, expense management, payroll, invoicing, and people are juggling between these things. This creates a lot of inefficiencies. It takes a long time to close the books. Your data is fragmented, so it's very hard to utilize all the benefits that we have from AI. It takes a very long time even to process an invoice and to pay it. And those kind of things is really something that now, when AI is upcoming, is really, really bad for business. So AI is coming, and you have all these new apps that came out in the last 2 years. And it's a lot. And these companies are well funded, they're all ready to take over. We don't have time to go through all of them, but there's a lot of things happening in the market. But the SMEs, they're not really looking for yet another tool that's going to help them with this and another tool on top. So the reality is that I think, and that's also why I'm here, the rebundling of the banks, is the winner is going to be somebody that combines it all. They want to spend less times in fewer tools. So what we actually do is we have an banking infrastructure, which is the typical banking stuff that you expect. So you get an IBAN, you get a card, you do payments. You have the business operations, which is actually some features on top. You can think about expense management, invoicing, the receiving of payments, team management, payroll. And of course, you have AI. And I'll dive into that one a little bit later. And the winner of this will be the one that owns a workflow. And I understand that it's a little bit hard to understand, but it's very important that you are both the bank and the workflow, because otherwise you can only do things partially. So for example, the expense management tool that we're talking about is only good at that little part of it. But now you want to automate the entire process. You need something that can actually execute payments also on your behalf. So at GoDutch, these are 2 examples of how owning the entire workflow helps businesses with, let's say, saving time and money. The first one is automatic invoice payments. So as a business now, you get so who has their own business here? I think nobody, everybody works for banks. You. So you get an invoice in, you're going to pay it, so you're going to send it to your financial controller, or do you keep it yourself? One person. So you come into your banking app, not going to ask you which bank it is. So you come into your banking app, you copy the IBAN, you copy the description, the amount, and then you pay it. And you forward it probably to your account or bookkeeper. Does that sound about right? Yeah. So with GoDutch, what you do is you get the invoice in your email, you forward it to GoDutch. You can also upload it in the app, but most people use email. We read it automatically. We process all the lines already. We prepare the payment, and you just say, I want to pay it, or even you can say, I want to put it on autopilot and pay automatically, and then it's all done. So instead of 10 minutes, you spend 3 seconds on it. It also syncs directly with your bookkeeping platform, so the invoice and a transaction both land inside your accounting software, already reconciled. And that's only possible because you own the banking infrastructure, and you can also execute the payment. The second example is regarding the team onboarding, which also has something to do with, again, owning the payment, the banking infrastructure, owning payroll, and also owning the team management on one side. So let's give an example. I'm not sure what your name is, but we're going to use this as an example. So you're going to work for GoDutch. We're going to onboard you inside GoDutch. That means that now inside the platform, all your salary payments are already automatically arranged. Also, the wage text is automatically arranged, and you know from yourself that you cannot automate those because every month the code from the tax office changes, but we can fix that. So all these things are already automatically, but also an expense card is already on the way. And that's of course great because that employee will not have to do expenses or reimbursements. It's all done, all taken care of with limits and things that you want to give her as an employee. Now, I'm sorry for this example, but let's say things are not going as planned and we have to offboard you. You can also offboard her in one tool, which means that there will be no accidental payments, but more importantly, all your subscriptions and everything that she did in her employment are also cancelled automatically. And those kind of things are really the things that save a lot of time and effort for a business. Then we go a step further. So we were just talking about the outer layer, which is the features. We were talking about the layer in the middle, which is banking to execute. But then we have a lot of AI that we can use now because all the data is in the same spot. And then we can do the really cool stuff. So the example that I use myself the most is the first one. So imagine that you go to a restaurant, you pay with your card. So you tap to pay. You automatically get a notification in the channel of your choosing. So I like WhatsApp because I use it the most, but it can also be Teams, it can also be Slack, whatever you use as a business. The person pays, gets a message saying like, hey, you just had dinner at a restaurant in near the Rij. Can you upload the receipt? You take a picture of the receipt. The AI automatically reads it, and then you can put rules on it. And the first rule is, of course, let's say the general rules. So every business has, for example, needs to know, is it an external dinner with a client or is it a colleague? Most Dutch businesses always say, especially small business owners, it's always with external relationships, of course. But let's say you need to ask that first, so we ask that. But you can also do custom rules, and you can also say, for example, okay, why did you have wine at lunch? It's not allowed in your company policy. So you have general rules you can set that count for all the companies, but also rules that are specifically for certain companies. And that stuff is something that really saves a lot of time, because otherwise the financial controller has to ask for it, they have to go around. And this is really something that even, let's say, the specific tools for expense management even haven't cracked. So that's something I'm really excited for. The other one is a step further, and I'm also curious to see who would use it here, so I'm going to ask you later if that's something that you would use. We also have built an invoice agent that you can give access to your email box, and it will go and find invoices on its own. So instead of forwarding the invoice to your bank or typing over the IBAN, it will find an invoice, and it will also say, okay, did you pay this person before, or this company? Is it below a certain threshold in terms of amount? And if those things are matched, it can pay automatically. You can make it as safe as you want, or as let's say, as wild as you want. But in principle, we're trying to be a little bit careful. But the whole idea is that all these manual actions you don't really need to do anymore. And I think this is something that I also really appreciate. But I'm just curious by the raising of the hands, how many people would use something like that? Well, that's great news. So that's really, I'm really happy for that. So now I just need to learn how to sell to really huge organizations, and I think then we'll be set. So it ties actually into the fact what I think banks are becoming, right? So I think there's a big switch coming where we're going to expect a lot more from these things. So we had, of course, the traditional system. Then there was at some point, and that's still the era we're in, where everything was in a separate tool. So it's very common, you have all these different things. And then orchestration, where everything comes together again in one platform. In a very simple way, I'm not going to dive deep into all the points. In a very simply said, it means that in the new system, the bank will become, let's say, a workflow. And I think that, sorry, 1 second. Oh. I think that if you look at all the things that you can do here, that the bank itself is not necessarily the gate anymore that you need to use in order to be successful. With GoDutch, that's what we're doing, and this is also the next slide. And we actually see that it's working very well. So we have celebrated our second birthday 4 days ago. We currently have 22,500 business users. We're growing super fast, and I think this is the number I'm most proud of. So we're processing almost 2.5 billion annually already. And that's something that really shows that this is a solution where SMEs are lurking for and waiting for. And I also hope that this sort of maybe inspires you to do something similar. So I also added a couple of themes that I think are, let's say, hopefully helping you in your daily jobs to also figure out what might be, where is it heading, where is it going. And I think The first one we already discussed quite a lot, right? So I believe that, let's say, a separate bank and a separate app for all these kind of things is not the future that we're going for. I think an integrated platform is what it will become. But I think this is also something that we're probably going to agree on, that AI will change a lot of things in how we do, for example, the financial administration, but basically everything related to those things. The third one is maybe a bit more further, but I do believe that the experience that people have with your platform is eventually going to be different, because there's a lot of companies now that can offer anything, let's say. So you have banking as a service providers, you can have all these different apps. So if you would want to and you have the resources, you can launch a bank tomorrow, right? Or let's say a year from now. But the difference is what people see and how people feel your product. And I think that's going to be the main differentiator. And I think it's going to be more important than, let's say, stature or long-term history or even the stability of an institution. So with those things, I wanted to conclude. Morten, I kept it pretty much within time, so very happy. But I do have some time for questions, if any. Yes.
Okay, I did that. Thank you.
To summarize, what do we do with all the data?
How do you deal and how do you process and manufacture all this data, since the number is overwhelming?
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of users, so you have a lot of data. So indeed, but I think on an individual level, the data is quite, let's say, it may seem like a lot, but it's not that much in the end. Like basically, the biggest thing we store are documents. So for example, invoices and photos of receipts, and those can be quite big. But in principle, that's something that's part of the product that we sell, right? So if a business does 100 of those a month, and we have to save those, that's part of our business model. And indeed, that has to be stored inside of Europe. And we also try to find European cloud for it, which is still a challenge. So we still work with American providers, but it's something that's part of our business, part of our cost of goods sold.
How you keep it secure? Then the next question is how you keep it secure.
That is our priority. So we have, let's say, we're in the application process for our own license. So you can imagine that we are under quite some scrutiny already, just to, let's say, make sure that everything is safe. So it begins with all the different device policies that we have, all the typical, let's say, access and, let's say, limitations you have on the product level. But I think most importantly for us, and I think also from all the recent hacks that you've seen, it's mainly human engineering. So it's really about educating your people. We're now quite small. We're almost 40 people, which is a very small team. If you have 2,000 people, it's going to be harder. But most of the hacks you currently see is human engineering. So it's people pretending I'm the CEO, look this up for me, and those kind of things. And that's how most hacks happen.
I wait.
It's okay, I saw.
It works? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We have problem to get access into the different systems. I can understand SME, maybe they have 2 or 3 banks, or you get funds, and this is for us a challenge sometimes to get all this data in. How do you arrange this?
Just out of curiosity, who is us?
I'm from a Rabobank, but
Okay, for Rabobank.
because we were setting up and we see it's very hard to get access to other systems as well.
Yeah. So I think there's different layers, right? So most systems have, and I think it's a great question. So I think most systems have capabilities of connecting to your bank. And usually the bank is not the connecting tool. So I'm actually interested in how you utilize it. We have indeed companies that have multiple bank accounts, and then we can use the PSD2, for example, to fetch transactions in. And this is what most systems already using. The problem with that is that it only works 4 times a day, and also not always. As everybody knows in this room, it's quite a buggy connection. And for AI, real-time data is very important. And the more metadata you can provide to the transaction, the better it will work. So if we own a transaction, we know everything up until the GPS coordinates and carbon footprint of a transaction, while PSD2 only gives us an IBAN, an amount, and it's very limited. So the more data we have, the more we can do. So we do have some open banking functionalities, but it's harder to do all the automations on top of it. So that's why we need to push people to our accounts so they can fully benefit from the AI. But we'll still support some Rabobank. And funny fact, I had a corporate venture that I took over from Rabobank before this, so we're quite close.
Any other questions for Thomas? One more.
Garima from UniCredit. I think we had some contact. My question is, how do you think this would compare with like maybe the Berlin startups who also have similar products, or also PSP, who might think about, as we had an earlier session where a PSP claimed that maybe that's the next level of making money, is actually going into the capital mode and then offering expense management also to SMEs or B2B.
So which Berlin startup are you referring to?
I would not say that.
So I think there's a lot of, I had the whole list here, right? So I think there's a lot of companies in the market. I think there is indeed, and there you can count them on, let's say, one hand, a number of startups that are doing what we do in a similar sense. So they own banking infrastructure, they own features, and they own, let's say, a layer of AI. The only downside of those products is that they're usually, and to my knowledge, all of them actually been developed for the really small companies, so for freelancers and self-employed people, while our product is really made for companies of 1 to 200 employees. So we're a little bit more upmarket, where the needs are a little bit different. If you and I need to go from here to Utrecht and want to go together, we'll take a Ferrari. But if we have to bring the entire room here, it won't fit, so we need a bus. We're more like a bus. And the bus is quite unique in Europe.
Any more questions? Maybe time for one final question for Thomas. No more questions? Thomas, thank you very much for enlightening us with a very, very exciting